Hi, I'm Amanda Morgan from NotJustCute.com, and I'm here with our first edition of First Friday Q&A for this new year. The first question I wanted to jump in with actually came to me from a friend of mine who called me on the phone. We had a great conversation, and I thought this is something that could be really interesting to you readers as well. And I also thought it would be really interesting to get some comments from you readers with your experiences and thoughts on this topic as well. My friend called to ask me about her son's imaginary friend. Her son is about 3.5 years old. He has an imaginary friend with a very proper name of Jackson William. And she said that her son gives very detailed descriptions about what Jackson William is doing and what he's saying and what's going on, and he's just a very vivid character. She also mentioned that there are times that her son was really upset about things that Jackson William had said or done. Specifically, she said that he was upset that Jackson William had called him a baby and that he was literally crying about this. He was upset about it. So she called me to check and see if all of this is normal. So first off, having an imaginary friend in the preschool years is completely normal. Some people actually say that it may be a sign of greater intelligence or higher order thinking. At any rate, it is totally normal. As we think about these preschool years, that's when children are beginning to develop greater ability for symbolic thinking and creative thinking and imagination. They can think beyond what's here and now in the concrete. So that's a sign of developmental growth. It's a good thing to be imaginative and creative. At the same time, they're still working with the concept of what is real and what is fantasy. And so they're still having a hard time gripping this, perhaps what is really happening and what was just a thought or a TV show or a story. What could really happen and what couldn't. So they're starting to grip that, but sometimes it's a little bit elusive. So that's part of why they're able to think symbolically about this person that isn't really present, but also be completely convinced that it's a real person and talk to you as though it's somebody who's really right next to them. So it's really normal. It's a sign of developmental growth. It's a normal development on that growth plot line. Now, one of the things that made my ears perk up is when she mentioned that he was emotionally upset about things that had gone on in his relationship with his imaginary friend. And now here's a place where I would pay a little more attention. If we think about imaginary friends as kind of another aspect of dramatic play, children may use this relationship, this dramatic play situation, essentially, as a way to work through thoughts and issues and experiences that they have. So if they're really upset about something that's going on with this imaginary friend, it might be worth continuing a conversation to ask more details. In this specific situation, she had mentioned that he was upset because the imaginary friend had called him a baby. Now, because I'm familiar with her and her son, this kind of went off as a light bulb in my mind because she's mentioned several times her son is still kind of working through developing more proficient toileting skills. And so there were times when she would talk to him about his big boy pants or different aspects of this skill, and he would just kind of defiantly say, no, I just want to still be a baby. I'm just a baby. I'm going to be a baby. And so it was interesting to me. I thought this could be just an indication that he's still kind of working through that whole idea. Of being a baby or being the grown-up and how that's going to work out and what he really wants to be right now. Does he want to be a bigger boy? Does he want to stay as a baby? It's a hard conflict, especially for the youngest in the family and somebody that's going through developing those skills and building that independence. So the fact that he was upset about his friend calling him a baby, his imaginary friend calling him a baby, I think is just kind of a projection of that struggle, that inner struggle that he's having, how he feels about himself, how he views his capabilities and growing up in the world, essentially. So I would just use that as a springboard to talk to him some more. Why do you think he said that? Or how did that make you feel? And talking some more about that topic, because to me it's a sign that either he has experienced that, perhaps someone else did call him a baby and he was upset about it, or that it's just something he's working out in his mind and trying to figure out. Now, another place where I would really pay attention to imaginary friends, as I mentioned, they may be projecting other experiences or things that they're trying to work out as they would in a dramatic play situation. And so if you're getting comments about an imaginary friend that may be disturbing or kind of following the lines of abuse, essentially, then I would, again, anytime they're upset, but particularly if some of these red flags are going on, to discuss what they're talking about and look at it a little bit further, especially if they're giving troubling details that you think might be indicative of them projecting a different experience to an imaginary friend. So if they're talking about their imaginary friend hurting them, or their imaginary friend being hurt or being bullied, or being in any of these unsafe situations, or feeling scared, it's a great jumping off point to talk about it some more. It might just be, again, an issue of feeling scared, and talk about that feeling and how it happened and how they dealt with it. But again, if they're using it as a way to project other things they're uncomfortable talking about that may be more serious issues, definitely don't just brush it aside as an imaginary friend, because as I mentioned again, imaginary friends could be similar to dramatic play, where they project things that they're trying to work out and understand. So use it as an opportunity to discuss and help them work through things that they are projecting into the situation and experiencing. And keep an eye out for those things that may be truly upsetting them, and talk about them and look at them further. But in and of itself, having an imaginary friend is a great aspect of childhood, completely normal. And I would divulge here that apparently I also had an imaginary friend whose name was Cheney and lived in the clouds, I'm told. So I would be one to say, sure, it is definitely a sign of higher level thinking, right? So I would love to hear from you in the comments. Those of you who have had children with imaginary friends, or stories about imaginary friends, I'd love to hear some more about that. Or if you've read a great article about imaginary friends, or have some additional information about it. But just to bullet point the main points, it's a normal part in the preschool years. It's a signal of the developing ability for symbolic thinking and imagination. It's also showing the conflict between understanding the difference between realism and fantasy. And it's a great opportunity to discuss the things that are going on, look at it as dramatic play, and an opportunity to help process and discuss things that your children are noticing and working through and finding interesting. So I would love to hear more from you. Leave those in the comments. Also email me with any questions for future First Friday Q&As. Send those to questions@notjustcute.com, or email me directly at amanda@notjustcute.com. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you in February with another edition of First Friday Q&A. Thanks.